Okay. All right. Hello. How are you? Good. All right. So we're getting started. Now, again, this stupid phone, if you're here, let me turn the phone my direction. There we go. Okay, if you're watching me on the video stream, please be alert that I only have about 22 minutes left to go on this device before the video is going to cut out. Okay, just because this phone is not very well made, it doesn't allow very much recording time. Okay, so I highly advise, if you're watching me on the video, that you switch over to the audio recording that I have also attached. Okay, especially if you're getting this video, if you're getting this video by email, I've also included the audio recording. Okay, so I highly advise that you open up the audio recording and listen to that as well, because this video is going to cut out in about 20 minutes. Okay, all right, but let's get started. The purpose of this monologue, basically, some world news flash. This is world-shattering information. This is going to change the course of human history forever. Well, maybe not quite that extreme, but it's at the very least interesting, and it's something definitely to add to the books to think about. Let me put it this way. I have answered the burning question, what is God? Well, I don't know how many I don't know how many people have cared to ask such a question. I think typically the burning questions tend to be, what is the meaning of life? And what is my purpose? What is the purpose of life, the meaning of life, and what is my purpose? What am I here for? I think that tends to be the questions that people ask, right? But I feel like I have heard the question raised, what is God? And I've actually been questioning that over the past few years as well. What is God? Not who is God, not, what does God want? Okay, all of that implies that God is a person or a personage or some sort of a conscious being of some sort. Well, what rational, conclusive evidence have we had that suggests that God is any sort of a conscious being, much less something of a personage type of form or entity? Okay, God is not, doesn't necessarily project the properties of being any sort of person or personage or conscious thinking being or entity of any kind. Okay, it is not a higher form of life or anything like that, and it certainly doesn't have a gender. Okay, to suggest that God is a he or even a she is just fallacious. Okay, God is genderless. Okay, God is an it at the very most, not a whom. Okay, but I think I know what God is. And I'm basically gonna, get right to the point and answer that question right now. I wrote it down word for word, but these are sort of my words. They're based on what I've learned from other sources, but I've basically consolidated what I've learned into a single answer, which basically answers what God is. So this is what God is, okay? All right, question, what is God? Answer, God is ontological, mathematical, monadic mind, which is perfectly balanced because it is equal to zero, the net result of positive and negative values. Okay. Some of you are probably thinking, what, huh, who, what, huh, what? What the hell did he just say? So I will repeat. What is God is the question. The answer is, God is ontological, mathematical, monadic mind, which is perfectly balanced because it is equal to zero, the net result of positive and negative values. Okay? Now I'm gonna read that in a different way, okay, and I'll explain the reason in a second, all right? So God is ontological, mathematical, monadic minds, which are perfectly balanced because they are equal to 0, the net result of positive and negative values. Okay? Now there's the reason I gave 2 reasons to read that, okay? The first reason suggests that God is a single entity. The second reason suggests, of course, as you probably figured out, that God is multiple entities. I know that Christians would have a problem with that if I suggested such a thing, which, well, I already did, but because, of course, Christians think of God as a single entity, which is why I prefer the first answer, okay? Suggesting that God is a single entity. And the truth is, God actually is a single entity, okay? God is a singularity source, okay? One singularity source. However, that singularity source is able to be divided, okay? The singularity source is basically a collection of monadic minds which consolidate into one singularity source of mind, okay? However, that singularity source is divisible into multiple monadic minds, okay? And we know that because, well, we are monadic minds, okay? And there was a lot of us, which means that God is able to split and divide itself many, many times in order to make multiple monadic minds, okay? I'll get more into that later, okay? But that is what God is, okay? So I'll read it one more time. God is ontological, mathematical, monadic mind, which is perfectly balanced because it is equal to 0, the net result of positive and negative values, okay? So let's start by explaining what basically that means, okay? Okay, basically going to take it I'm going to take it one word at a time. This is not really the way I learned it, but I think this might be number one easiest for me to explain this way, but also easiest for people just learning this to figure out what it is that I'm saying, okay? So, all right, the concept of God is basically just simply a concept, okay? It's a word that describes something that most of us up until recently didn't even know what it was, okay? All right, the word ontological means real, okay? It means real, as opposed to something of faith, okay? God has always been presumed to be within the domain of faith and belief, okay? But we don't have to think of God that way because God is something that's real, as long as it's explained correctly, okay? And how do you explain God correctly? In other words, real, when explaining God to be mathematical monadic mind, okay? The singularity source made up of mathematical monadic minds, okay? The reason that's what the singularity source or God is, okay, also known as the One, is because the single source or God, is made up of frequency waves, okay? You see, the only true eternal thing in all of existence, the universe, if you want to call it that, is mathematical frequency waves. Okay, mathematical frequency waves is the only true thing of reality and the only eternal thing. Okay, and we know it's eternal because it is essentially equal to 0. Okay, now that doesn't mean that God is 0. Don't misinterpret the meaning behind the word 0. Okay, 0 means perfectly balanced. In mathematical, in real mathematical philosophy, okay, 0 basically means something that's perfectly balanced. And the reason is because there's going to be positive integers, okay, or numbers and negative numbers, okay, in any mathematical discipline, okay? Okay, but when those numbers are perfectly balanced, they make 0, okay? Pure and simple, logical, okay? Well, I think most people of faith would agree that they think of God as being everything that's perfectly balanced. Perfectly balanced, harmonious being that keeps everything balanced and in harmony. Okay? Right? Well, the fact is that's exactly correct. Okay? God is the essence of perfect balance and harmony because God is zero. Okay? Equal to, perfect zero, which is the perfect balance in the universe. Okay? What does it mean to be mind? Well, mind basically projects thought. Okay? And that's basically how everything came about in the first place. Okay? You see, the only singularity source, all right, from which everything started that there could possibly be is thought. Okay? Matter is not eternal. Only thought is eternal. Okay? Thought comes from mind. Therefore, mind is the only thing that's eternal. Therefore, if there is an eternal being that made us, a God, if you will, it has to be mind. Okay? Because mind is the only thing that's eternal. Okay? You can trace everything back as far as you possibly could. Okay? But you cannot, you can trace matter, is what I meant. Matter or space-time dimension as far back as you possibly can think of. Okay? And always arrive at more matter and more space and time dimension, which means that no matter how far back you go, there was always matter and space-time dimension before the matter and space-time dimension that's in question. Okay? However, there's one thing that you cannot trace back prior to its existence, and that is mind or thought. Okay? Mind or thought is the only thing, okay, which was not made by something. Okay? Because it takes mind to make matter. However, it does not take matter to make mind. Okay? Mind exists independent of whether or not there's matter, whether or not there's space, whether or not there's time, whether or not there's dimensions. Okay? Without any of that existing, there is still mind. Okay? Without any of that, it's called the physical the physical domain. Okay? Matter, space, time, dimensions, it's all the physical domain. Okay? The thing is, the physical domain cannot exist independent of mind. However, mind can exist independent of the physical domain. Okay? It doesn't take matter or space, time, dimension to make mind. However, it does take mind to make a space-time dimension. Okay? It takes mind to make anything that's physical. Okay? And that's how we know that mind is the only true thing that is eternal. Therefore, if there is a God, what you call God is mind. What you call God is thought. Eternal, essential, ontological thought. Okay? Now, you're probably, wondering, well, how the heck do we know this? I mean, how could this be? And the reason is because mind is controlled by, or when I shouldn't say controlled, because nothing controls mind, because it is eternal and everlasting, regardless of whether or not anything else exists. Okay, but mind is the property of frequency waves. Okay, that's the best way to explain it. Thought and mind are the properties of frequency waves. Okay. And the reason we know that is because frequency waves are the only things that project true perfection. Okay? What perfection do they project? Well, the perfection of nothingness, aka zero. Okay? Now, I know that sounds crazy. Well, how can nothingness be perfection? Because it is equal to zero. Okay? Because zero is the perfect balance of all things. Okay? Because you have negative numbers, you have positive numbers. You have negative activity, you have positive activity. You have good stuff, you have bad stuff, right? But regardless, all of that is put into balance by the number zero. When it is zeroed out, it becomes perfect. Okay? Therefore, zero is the only true perfection, and therefore, zero, which is nothing, is where perfection really exists. Okay, the domain of perfection is that of zero. It is that of nothingness, because it is perfect harmony and equality. Okay, perfect harmony, equality, and perfection are equal to zero. All right? And so, again, if there is a God, which I believe there is, okay, God is basically the essence of zero. In other words, nothingness. In other words, perfect harmony. Okay, where everything is in balance. Okay, and back before everything was made from God, from the singularity source, aka the one, before everything came about, via frequency waves from the singularity source, everything was in perfect harmony. Okay? Because all there was the singularity source, which was equal to zero, which is absolute perfection. Okay? And so there it is, okay? So I'm gonna read the question and answer one more time, and then it probably will make a little bit more sense, all right, when I do. So the question is, what is God? The answer is, God is ontological, mathematical, monadic mind, which is perfectly balanced because it is equal to zero, the net result of positive and negative values. Okay, so again, what is God? God is ontological, mathematical, monadic mind, which is perfectly balanced because it is equal to zero, the net result of positive and negative values. Okay? So far, this is probably making sense. Okay? Now some of the words you may still be a little bit uncertain of in terms of what they mean. Okay? So I'll just go over, basically, I'll summarize each of them just so that they're clear. Ontological basically means real. It means something that's real, okay? As opposed, in other words, not fake. We know what mathematics is, mathematical. Okay, monadic. Monadic, well, mono means one, right? So monadic is an entity of one. Okay, the singularity source, I said that the singularity source was divided into multiple monadic minds, and that's true. But the singularity source is one collective monadic mind, which subdivides itself into different monadic minds. We are individual monadic minds. Okay, we come from the collective source of monadic mind, the singularity source. Okay? And mind, I explained what that is. It's thought, eternal thought. Okay? From which everything comes, but, to which nothing existed before it. Okay? It is eternal. Okay? We know what being balanced is. We know what perfection is. Okay, monadic mind is perfectly balanced. She did not know we went outside. Okay, and I explained why it's zero. Okay, the net result of positive and negative values. Okay, think of this. Okay, if you've ever taken calculus, okay, or any entry level mathematical course or whatnot into calculus is complicated. I get that. Okay, all right. But even if you take an algebra or stuff like mathematics with applications, you've probably studied a little bit of calculus. Anyway, you probably understand the concept of quadrants and the two axes, right? Okay, the y and x axis and the four quadrants of quadratic equations and all of that. Okay, does that sound familiar to any of you? Okay, think of a T. Okay, all right, and you got the four quadrants within each corner of the T. Okay, all right. What is the equilibrium point right in the middle? It's zero, right? Okay, well, there you go. So 0 is perfect equality. Okay, because 0 is right in the middle, okay, in between all negative and positive values. So there it is. Okay? Anything in the positive realm is going to be less perfect than 0. Anything in the negative realm is going to be less perfect than 0, right? That's logical. Therefore, 0 is true perfection. Therefore, the equilibrium point, or the singularity source, the point of absolute perfection, is 0. Okay? It doesn't mean that it's worthless or nothing. 0 is not worthless. It is far greater than anything negative, isn't it? In true mathematical discipline, 0 is greater than any negative number, isn't it? Well, then how can 0 be worthless if 0 is already worth more than any negative number? Correct? Okay. So, that's, the mythology that 0 is nothing or worthless is, just simply stupid, because that's not true. Okay? It's already worth more than negative numbers, so it's not worthless. Okay? And it's more balanced than any other number, including any positive number. Okay? It is where the point of equal balance, perfection is. Okay? Because it's right in between anything positive and anything negative. Okay? All right. So that's an entry level into this. I'm trying to figure out how to put it. Anyway, I won't get into that right now. Okay? I'm trying to think how to describe this. Okay? This is not a religion. It's not a faith. It's not a belief system. It's nothing like that. It's basically fact. Okay? Because it's based on real mathematics, which is the essence and the true answer to the existence of everything. True existence is explained by mathematics. Okay? Therefore, the fact that there is existence